It's no problem of mine, it's a problem I find, living a life that I can't leave behind. There's no sense in telling me the wisdom of a fool won't set you free. That's the way that it goes, it's what nobody knows, while every day my confusion grows. Every time I see you falling, I get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. I feel fine and I feel good. I feel like I never should. When I get this way, I just don't know what to say. Why can't we be ourselves like we were yesterday? Well, I'm not sure what this could mean. I don't think you're what you seem. I admit to myself, if I hurt someone else, I'll never see just what we're meant to be. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say. Every time I see you falling, get down on my knees and pray. I'm waiting for that final moment to say the words that I can't say.
Going live on TikTok as well. How exciting. How exciting. I'm curious to see if anybody shows up on TikTok as opposed to over here. Oh, pause. Hello, who's all over here? Jackie. Hey, que bueno, amigo. Good to see you guys. Thank you for being over here. Shadow, brother, Jody, good to see you. I'm really excited about this, you guys. We're gonna keep going into this flood, our scientism scenario and lies that we've been exposed to. And tonight's gonna be the flood, and we're gonna cover uniformitarianism, which is really important as far as understanding how we perceive our reality. So, Shadow, I know you know a lot of this. Shadow's kind of, at this point, the resident flood expert, which is ironic because Rich Flood should be the flood expert. We need to get Rich Flood in here. This is like a show for him, you know? A flood show without Flood. Who wants that? Nobody. How is everybody tonight? It's been a crazy couple weeks in VOR town. How's everybody feeling? How's everybody doing? Hello, TikTok. We're going to be doing this here on TikTok and also on YouTube. On YouTube, we do a screen share. So there's going to be times where I'm just kind of standing here, sitting here, and the action's going on YouTube. So what day is it? October 27th. Winter's coming. We've got a cold northern wind coming in, and I don't think we're ready for winter yet. Certainly not. Chloe, did you get it shared onto the Discord? I assume she probably did. Anybody on TikTok, if you're new to the show, on the Voice of Reasons, we like to debunk all things conspiracy. Sorry, we like to talk all things conspiracy and debunk all things official narrative. We cover the crazy things going on in the construction of the capital city, lies in the media, lies in the education system. Pretty much anything that I was taught, I distrust. Not a whole lot of things that I'm excited about that they tell me. So, before we get going, is there anything anybody would like to talk about, or any questions or anything? Probably not. What would I want to talk about before we get into this? What's hard is that when we do the YouTube, it just goes straight to the broadcast, and so if somebody's tuning in, they're gonna not know what's going on particularly, and I'm just gonna be rambling, and they're gonna skip the video. But I also want to give time for people to show up. So, Shadow, you read the article I shared. What were your thoughts on that? I almost wish I could tune you into this so you could expound. Hello, Carissa. Good to see you. We're over on YouTube. Oh, I know what's going on. There's nobody in here because of this pimple on my face. This is my co-host today, my pimple. We'll see how that goes. Carissa, if you wanted to jump over to the live stream that we do, that's where the community is kind of gathering. I mean, they stay on TikTok a little bit, but I can't do a screen share on TikTok. So we do it over there as well. My fraud got taken care of. 8K, be back soon. I don't know what that means. Yeah, the link is in the bio. All right, so I'm going to get started. What Shadow just brought up is that there's a guy by the name of Sir Francis Bacon, and Sir Francis Bacon is one of those people that you don't know the name of, but has affected your life 100%. Hello, DJ PJ. The things that he covered are unbelievable. I actually kind of want to start with, do I want to do the Francis Bacon thing? Yeah, quickly I do. Bacon wrote a book called America, the New Atlantis. And in it, he exposed the Freemasonic plan to use America to bring the world into one world government. And he wrote this in the 1600s, the 17th century. And apparently he was related to Queen Elizabeth, which I didn't know. Maybe his son, like an illegitimate son or something. But he's known as John Dee. The 007 character was modeled after him. He is potentially Shakespeare, which is really interesting. And he wrote he created the English language that we have, if that's the case. And then I didn't know this, but apparently he was the one directing the wind of what we call scientific materialism. This idea of uh, explaining this reality with no supernatural causation. He wanted to explain the entire fabric of our reality in a like materialist way. So everything is just space, time, and matter. So he predated Einstein by 200 years or whatever, of course. And it's no surprise that the system gravitated to what Einstein was throwing out there. And you've seen now a concerted effort, and with what I'm going to tie in today, of basically 500 years now, 400 plus years of working towards creating a narrative that everybody believes that we have an entirely natural existence. There is no supernatural. And I didn't know Bacon was behind that. And doing the research that I was doing today, coming across that just blew my mind. I just can't even imagine that he was involved with that. So I can't cover that tonight, unfortunately. Maybe I can pull it up on the Discord. Nah, it's out of context. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, guys, over on TikTok, if you go to the bio and you click on that and you go to Linktree, there's a YouTube link. And this is where everybody's starting to gather over on YouTube because I can do the screen share. So, all right. So, have you guys heard of the term uniformitarianism? Have you ever heard the term uniformitarianism? This will be for TikTok or YouTube. Are you familiar with this idea? With the leg, it causes dead air, but I want to know because the first time I had heard of uniformitarianism is when I was a kid. I grew up with a very high intellect friend of mine, and he would always tell me that the largest word in the English language was anti-uniformitarianism. Uniformitarianism. Chip says I used to wear a uniform. That has nothing to do with wearing a uniform. It does have to be with uniform, which uniform, right? There's some etymology for you. One form. But uniformitarianism is a philosophy. And uniformitarianism basically is a lens. I've said before multiple times that we have to perceive our reality through a lens, almost like you're wearing contacts. And that lens that you have is provided to you by your parents, by your schooling, by the government, by the media, by all these, modes of information that you're inundated with. Because as a child, you're going, what is this reality? How does this reality work? And somebody tells you. You ask the question and somebody tells you what it is. Well, uniformitarianism says that everything that happens is a result of things that we see happening right now. And this was pushed. I wish Leandro Eusebio would get on here. I titled this The Flood just so he might find us again. But basically all of geology has been studied since, I don't know, definitely all of the 1800s as everything that's created has been created through the processes of what we see happening right now. So if you have the Grand Canyon and it's a huge, chasm in the earth, you have to dismiss the idea of a flood and you have to say a river formed that. And if a river formed it, how long did that take? Millions and millions and millions of years, right? So let's start with looking at uniformitarianism, what it is, where it came from. There's a guy named Charles Lyell. Has anybody heard the name Charles Lyell? Let me show you. breakdown on who this guy is. So guys on TikTok, if you go to YouTube, you can see the screen share that I'm doing. If not, I will try to explain it. That's not the one. Here it is. Okay. Charles Lyell. As an author, friend, and correspondent, Charles Lyell played a crucial role in shaping Darwin's scientific life. Born to a wealthy gentry family in Scotland in 1797, Lyell had a classical and legal education, but by the 1820s had become entranced by the popular and exciting subject of geology. Has said no one ever. The exciting became entranced with the exciting subject of geology. That's not a thing that people say. Anyways, geology is actually really cool, but I don't know if I've ever heard it explained that way. So the first thing is he was born into a wealthy gentry family. Big surprise, right? I'm sure he's tied in. If you do a little bit of research, I'm sure he's a Freemason. And actually, I did do that research, and he is. And he's born into wealth. These are the kind of the elites control the narrative, and so you're born into wealth, maybe a selected family. We don't know particularly. Anyways, in the 1820s, he became excited about geology. Geologists had already revealed a succession of unexpected forms of animals and plants. Succession. This is where evolution gets started. And it's important for me to frame who Lyell is and how instrumental he was in the worldview, what you believe right now. What you believe right now is a result of this man in this chair, this wealthy dead guy. And watch how. Demonstrated the need for a vastly longer time scale than that allowed for by traditional biblical criticism. So this is the University of Cambridge and the University of Cambridge, right? This isn't some creationism, as they call it, apologetic site. This is the University of Cambridge, okay? They're really excited in geology because they are revealing a succession of unexpected forms of animals and plants and demonstrated the need for a vastly longer time scale than that allowed for by traditional biblical criticism. Lyell believed, however, that the subject remained beset by speculation and uncertainty. In Principles of Geology, he aimed to make it a philosophically rigorous science based on actual causes that could be viewed in action at the present time. In Lyell's view, this ruled out any sudden catastrophes. No earth-destroying comets or mountains popping up like mushrooms or floods, right? This is what he's saying. Hello, Reyes. Sean is Holly, just so you know. It gets kind of confusing. Sholly. This is where Darwin gets involved. During the Beagle voyage, Darwin became a zealous disciple of the reforming approach in Principles, especially the way in which small changes could be seen to add up over time to make big changes. This is clear in Darwin's innovative explanation of the origin of coral reefs. Although thousands of meters thick, these could be produced by tiny polyps growing just enough each year to keep up with the subsidence of the ocean floor. Although Lyell had originally suggested a different theory, he appreciated Darwin's reasoning and accepted it. Lyell became a close friend when Darwin moved to London and was an important correspondent. Lyell encouraged the ambitious young naturalist, right? I was just talking about a natural worldview, provided a model of what it meant to be a theorist, and gave good advice about avoiding administrative burdens. Darwin also believed that his books came out of Lyell's brain. Darwin also believed that his books half came out of Lyell's brains. Darwin's book, The Origin of the Species, half came out of Lyell's brains. So I said bacon at the beginning of this when I was just chatting. Hello, Spirit-filled believer. We're over on YouTube. If you want to join us over there, links in the bio. I'm sharing my screen there. So when you see me looking up and not talking, whatever, it's because I'm interacting with that. But nice to see you. Okay, so a name you've never heard of, potentially, Sir Francis Bacon. I mean, you've heard of Bacon. Bacon wasn't named after Bacon, by the way. And then Lyell. These are two people that have formed how you see your reality. These are two people that helped form the lens that you look through to perceive this reality. And you've never heard their names. Maybe you have. Lyell, man, it's so convoluted when you start seeing how it all fits together. It's just so murky. Lyell and Darwin, and then Darwin and Galton, these guys, these elites, they just built this narrative of your version of your reality. And as we gain momentum here, you're going to see what these people and what they believed, how it absolutely affected science. And today, still today, we do science today. We don't do science, they do science. And they tell us what to believe based on what these two old dead white guys taught about how they perceived reality. Okay. Uniformitarianism. James Hutton, along with Charles Lyell, James Hutton developed the concept of uniformitarianism. He believed Earth's landscape, like mountains and oceans, formed over long periods of time through gradual processes. Volcano erupting. The principle of uniformitarianism. Oh, wait, let me go back a little bit. To get a window into past events, this is known as uniformitarianism, the idea that Earth has always changed in uniform ways that the present is the key to the past. Have you ever heard this saying, the present is the key to the past? If you haven't heard that, that's what we all believe. That's what we were all taught anyways. The present, what's happening right now, is the key to understanding the past. The principle of uniformitarianism is essential to understanding Earth's history. This is National Geographic, as Kent Hovind would say, National Pornographic. And this is the science narrative brought to you by the lying establishment. They tell you how to believe and what to think. And this is what they're teaching you today, uniformitarianism. It is essential to understanding the Earth's history. However, prior to 1830, uniformitarianism was not the prevailing theory. Until that time, scientists subscribed to the idea of catastrophism. This is how new this is. Before 1830, science subscribed to the idea of catastrophism. Catastrophism suggested that the features seen on the surface of the Earth, such as mountains, were formed by large, abrupt changes or catastrophes. People believed that the flood happened until this yahoo showed up, Darwin's buddy. People believed that everything that you could see was formed in large part by the great flood of Noah, because they believed in the Bible as a scientific text. Okay. And these guys came out and said, no, we don't believe in God. We don't want you to believe in the Bible. We're going to teach you a whole new narrative. So I want this to be understood how important this is. Prior to 1830, uniformitarianism was not the prevailing theory. Until that time, scientists subscribed to the idea of catastrophism. This is how recent in human history that people have dismissed the Bible. People believed the Bible for thousands of years. And it's been about 200 years that they haven't. And now we live in a reality where if you're like, I believe in the Bible, I believe in the flood, they want to laugh you out the door, which I'm going to get to later. You got a good troll. Missed that. You guys that are on TikTok. Guy just said it's nice to have schizophrenics have a place to vent. So schizophrenic talk, apparently. I forget about that. Wow. Okay. People don't like it when you tell them you believed a lie. People just don't like that. They don't like you saying you bought a lie. It's like a pride-based response, right? Chip Perry says, my name is Chip Perry, and I too believe in the Bible. I know. We're recovering addicts, Bible-believing addicts. Catastrophism suggested the features seen on the surface of the Earth, such as mountains, were formed by large abrupt changes or catastrophes. When discussing past climates, opponents to uniformitarianism may speak of no analog changes. This idea suggests that certain communities or conditions that existed in the past may not be found on the Earth today. The idea of catastrophism was eventually challenged based on the observations and studies of the two men, James Hutton and Charles Lyell. Hutton was a Scottish farmer and naturalist. In his observations of the world around him, he became convinced natural processes such as mountain building and erosion occurred slowly over time through geologic forces that have been at work since the Earth first formed. He eventually turned his observations and ideas into what became known as the principle of uniformitarianism. This is a man who said, I don't particularly believe in the Bible, and I like how things look in my own mind, and so I'm going to change how everybody believes for the rest of human history. Everybody's going to believe how I believe, right? Makes me want to pull up the Bill Nye video. Among the scientists who Hutton was Charles Lyell. He was a Scottish geologist. He published a book, Principles of Geology, which is still taught today. Principles of Geology is still a textbook today that's taught. The guy came up in 1830. He had no radiocarbon dating, no carbon, no kind of ways to validate his theory. He just believed it and wanted you to believe it. And the elites were behind him. You know, the Rockefeller Group, the Carnegie, Soros, these kind of people who just want to push this anti-God narrative. They got behind them, and now this became our curriculum. So I'll try and go a little bit quicker here. Which was still the dominant. Okay. So Principles of Geology challenged the idea of catastrophism, which was still the dominant theory despite Hutton's work. Despite this one man's work, a lot of people still believed in the Bible. The Bible built, caused the Grand Canyon and the fossil record and whatever. Can you believe that? He was working so hard. This man was working so hard. And despite his hard work and the book he published, people still believed in catastrophism. It was the dominant theory. Lyell believed Hutton was correct about the gradual changing process shaping the Earth's surface. He found his own examples of these processes in his examination of rocks and sediments. For example, he discovered evidence that sea levels had risen and fallen in the past, that volcanoes may exist atop older rocks, and that valleys form slowly by erosional power of water. The combined efforts of Lyell and Hutton became the foundation of modern geology. Rich Flood? Bro, this is a flood series. Where are you at? I was just saying a little bit like I can't do a flood series without Rich Flood. Thank you guys for the nice words on TikTok. So check this out. Everybody believed in the Bible. Everybody believed in catastrophes. Dude's like, no, you're wrong. I'm going to make you all believe something different. Two men, Hutton and Lyell. The combined efforts of these two guys became the foundation of modern geology. And then Darwin, the founder of evolutionary biology, looked at the uniformitarianism as support for his theory, how species could emerge, evolution of life, blah, 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 blah. Science conceptions of both geology and biology had entered a new day, a new world order, right? This is the new reality. This is what we were taught. Two guys came in, looked at the rocks, because you guys might not understand this, okay? When you're trying to figure out how this happened, how the Earth happened, when it happened, you're looking at rocks, okay? You're looking through a telescope at stars, which don't give much feedback, and you're looking at the ground at rocks, and you are going to interpret the data of what these rocks are telling you based on your worldview. I just read this whole thing about how their philosophy was this. Your worldview is everything. It's everything you see is going to be fit into your worldview, and you can thank Hutton and Lyell for their worldview, okay? Now I'm going to show you a documentary. No, it's a lecture. Sorry. It's about 6 minutes. So TikTokers, be really good for you to be over there because I can't share this. It's on YouTube. So if you can jump over there, cool. If not, I'll try to keep you entertained while watching this. But this is about the Missoula floods and the amazing thing that happened. A geologist by the name of Barretts, J. Harlan Barretts, he looked at the rocks, the same rocks that Hutton was looking at in Lyell, and he goes, this was a flood. This was definitely a flood. The Missoula, it's the Columbia River Gorge and the Lake Missoula overtopping incident. And he basically comes out, and Barretts comes out, and he goes, look, you guys, this is a flood. And everybody's like, you can't say it's a flood. The gods of geology, the gods of geology, Lyell and Hutton have spoken, and you can't believe that this is a flood. It doesn't matter what the evidence says, you can't do it. And Barretts had to fight tooth and nail his whole life with the data, with the actual physical evidence of a flood. He spent his whole life trying to convince the world that their philosophy was wrong and that uniformitarianism did not explain what had happened at the Missoula flood. So we're going to watch this for a couple minutes. I want you to this is a modern geologist talking about what I'm talking about, and he says, he tells the whole story. He talks about how everybody opposed him and how he wanted to quit and how exhausting and terrible it was for him, and he was like going to leave this whole field. And remember this, mind you, he had the truth on his side. This guy was making an observation that was the Occam's razor explanation, the most simple explanation. A flood did this, and they refused it. They refused it based on their philosophy. They refused it because a giant flood carving out this thing discredited their whole agenda. And spoiler, it's taught as actual science now. I gotta stop sharing my screen when I'm not sharing my screen. Hopefully you guys are a little bit nerdy like me. This is like nerd apologetics, conspiracy nerd apologetics class. So what is the YouTube handle? It's in my bio. Go to my bio up there in the corner, click on Linktree, and then YouTube should be right at the top or close to the top. And then just go to the live videos. It's also in our Discord. Okay, here we go. This is so frustrating to me, you guys. I'll try to keep my cool tonight. Okay, we need to go to 12 minutes. This whole thing is great. I just, so you guys know kind of my content, people share with me really cool content, and they tell me to look it up. And I like what the other content creators are doing, but where I get my data is from papers and lectures for the most part. I mean, I watch Jason Lyle and Kent Hovind and you know, some of those guys too, but the majority of this is going right to the source because I like to make my own deductions. So I watch dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of these kind of things. Whether if I'm on like quantum physics, I research from the actual theoretical physicists. If I'm on simulation, you know, I look into those lectures, the flood, whatever. So, and I would encourage you guys to do the same. If you guys have something you guys want to try and figure out, go to the source and then, you know, eat the meat and spit out the bones. So here we go.
So you saw Coke Lake scoured out, bedrock everywhere. And then when you go down into the Columbia River Valley, this is Washington, this is Oregon, this is I-84, and the Columbia River is deep down in here. And you can see where water levels got up to this point. That's all loose from there on up. This is all Columbia River basalt that is exposed down there. And you can just follow it all up and down the whole system. And so he saw all of these features, and in 1923, he put together a first paper, and he called it the Spokane Flood. And he said that a large flood came down through Spokane, created the channel Scablanche, as you can see here. There is Wallula Gap, and he described this. Now, the detractor...
Okay, before we go into that, just because this might be lacking context, we're from Colorado, and if you could think about the Rocky Mountains, you know, let's say this is America here. Let's see. Yep, this is Missoula. This is North Dakota, we'll say. These are the Rocky Mountains coming down here. What we believe in the intelligent design community, in the pro-flood community, is that the mountain ranges weren't really what they are now. That the flood, when that happened... Actually, let me take a step back. What we believe with the flood geology is that the world before the flood was totally different than the world that there is now. We believe that basically it says in the Bible that the waters came out from under the earth, that they were underneath the earth in subterranean chambers. There's actually still underground oceans in the subterranean chambers. It says in the Bible that the water burst forth from the womb. It came up out of the earth. So we believe that the water came out of the earth, and that basically the earth was bigger, filled with water inside of it, almost like a balloon. The earthquake happened. It ripped open a fissure around the earth, which is what is now the mid-oceanic rift. Is that what it's called? The mid-Atlantic rift. And basically, as the water came out, now the ground kind of like a balloon deflated. So now there was more earth than there was the circumference. And so it started buckling. So basically there was water underneath the crust, and the water was, so this was all underneath the flood that was happening. But you had rising, uplifting, you had trenches forming, like a rug. If you pushed a rug up against the wall, you have high points and you have low points. And so this is all happening while they're floating safely in the boat above the waters. And this is where all the major mountains were formed, right? So it comes up, you get Mount Everest, or, the Himalayas, whatever. This is why there's whales and all kind of fossils up there, because the water, started finally receding, and now you had a peak come up. And if the water was receding as the peak was coming up, now you get a whale stuck on a mountain and you have fossilization. And then what would happen is the water, as it receded, would get stuck in big mountain ranges like the Rocky Mountains, because it would drain, but you'd have all these now peaks. So the theory is basically that there was water in pockets all the way down the Rocky Mountains. And since water wants to get to sea level, when the water broke a dam down, basically, that water rushed out of the Rocky Mountains down towards the Pacific, right? And they're going to talk about the one up in the north, again, in Montana. We believe it happened at the Grand Canyon as well, a little bit further south, Arizona, Utah. And those were the two major ones in America, but they happened in all the mountain ranges around the world. And so what ends up happening here is they blame them on ice ages. But this area is basically Montana into eastern Washington, and that whole area going down into like Seattle. So that's where that deluge, or that body of water, huge, they say, like, 4 Great Lakes or something filled with water, broke, and that water just rushed out to the Pacific Ocean. And this is what this geology shows. Nerd Night, Vancouver.
Of the day said, where?
Listen to the start of this. So he's giving the map.
And he called it the Spokane flood. And he said that a large flood came down through Spokane, created the channel Scablands, as you can see here. There is Wallula Gap. And he described this. Now, the detractors of the day said, where did the water come from, number one? And number two, it's catastrophic. You're breaking the laws of uniformitarianism, this big, huge word that goes back to the beginning of geology in Scotland with James Hutton.
Okay. So they go, yeah, okay, there's a flood here. Clearly we see a flood and it washed out. But that can't have happened, because the detractors said, where did the water come from? We've got your answer, big flood. And he also said, you can't come up with this theory that is like this, because you're breaking the laws of uniformitarianism. I said that just like the guy. I've heard this video so many times. Where did the water come from? Can't have happened, because there would never be that much water. What about a flood, right? What about a flood? And you can't come up with theories like this, because you can't forsake the gods of geology, Hutton and Lyell, right? It's not the data is wrong. It's we refuse the Bible and we refuse the Bible. Listen to that again. This information is so loaded with this kind of
large flood
rhetoric.
Came down through Spokane, created the channel Scablands, as you can see here. There is Wallula Gap, and he described this. Now, the detractors of the day said, where did the water come from, number one? And number two, it's catastrophic. You're breaking the laws of
Bug bite.
uniformitarianism, this big, huge word that goes back to the beginning of geology in Scotland with James Hutton back in the late 1700s. And you just can't do that to break the laws. So in 1927, he was invited to Washington, D.C., to the Geological Society of America meeting. And they said to Bretz, we would like to have you present a paper on your Spokane flood. They didn't tell him that they had lined up 5 hydrologists with the U.S. Geological Survey after them, the top 5 in the United States, to tell him how wrong he was.
Do you see this? It's a setup. They're like, oh, you did this research, right? And you figured this really important stuff out. Well, it defies our narrative, and so you can't do it. So why don't you just come out to Washington, D.C., shocker, and we'll go over this. We'll go over the your theory. No, it was a firing squad. It was the big guns of geology, all the textbook writers, and they were just there to crucify the guy. On TikTok, it says every civilization has a flood narrative. Yeah, we're going to cover that a little bit, including the Freemasons. It's crazy. It happened. The flood happened.
And they did. The leadoff guy, O.E. Meinzer, the father of American hydrology, followed by James Galooly. He wrote the geology textbook that I learned geology on way back when, Galooly, Waters, and Woodford. G.R. Mansfield, W.C. Alden, and E.T. McKnight. All of these guys crucified him. And by that time, he had moved back to the University of Chicago. And he said, forget it. I'm not going to do any more research on the Spokane flood. And he actually shifted his whole geological research area to caves and cave formation.
Think about that, you guys. This guy, and again, spoiler, this is now accepted science. It's known as the Missoula floods. Barrett's fought the law and won. He raged against the machine. But how frustrating is it that the actual data, the evidence said flood, and they dismissed it? They dismissed it as a potentiality. Nope. No flood. Nope. No flood. Flood means Bible. Bible is bad. No flood. Doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter. Like, I know I say this over and over, being a certified conspiracy theorist, but if you're a conspiracy theorist and you know that the mainstream media is lying and Fauci's lying and CNN's lying and, they don't have your best interest in mind, if you've heard the term pandemic, this isn't new. And they're fine doing this. You know why? Because they know it works. They've socially engineered us for thousands of years. They work for their father, the devil, and the devil knows how to manipulate man. The truth doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter to these people. The truth is a liability. It's collateral damage. Their agenda matters. And science, everything, is much more manipulatable than you have any idea, because they didn't say we don't know. Think critically. They said, this is how it works. Believe it, or you're crazy. I'm surprised it took me this long to share this, and I wish you guys on TikTok would be able to see this, but this is just a reminder on what they're telling you. And I'm going to mute my mic and say word for word what Bill Nye is going to say here to the TikTok group.
Denial of evolution is unique to the United States. I mean, we are the world's most advanced technological, you could say Japan, but generally the United States is where most of the innovation still happens. People still move to the United States. And that's largely because of the intellectual capital we have, the general understanding of science. When you have a portion of the population that doesn't believe in that, it holds everybody back, really. Evolution is the fundamental idea in all of life science, in all of biology. It's very much analogous to trying to do geology without believing in tectonic plates. You're just not going to get the right answer. Your whole world is just going to be a mystery instead of an exciting place. As my old professor Carl Sagan said, when you're in love, you want to tell the world. So once in a while, I get people that claim they don't believe in evolution. And my response generally is, so why not? Really, why not? your world just becomes fantastically complicated when you don't believe in evolution. I mean, here are these ancient dinosaur bones or fossils. Here is radioactivity. Here are distant stars that are just like our star, but that are at a different point in their life cycle. The idea of deep time, of this billions of years, explains so much of the world around us. If you try to ignore that, your worldview just becomes crazy. It's just untenable, self-inconsistent. And I say to the grown-ups, if you want to deny evolution and live in your world that's completely inconsistent with everything we observe in the universe, that's fine. But don't make your kids do it, because we need them. We need scientifically literate voters and taxpayers for the future. We need people that can, we need engineers that can build stuff.
Okay. Now I've showed that over and over and over. We played the game the other day of crazy, untenable, or inconsistent. So with what I'm going to show you with this uniformitarianism Missoula flood thing, what do you guys consider this incorrect, errant, desperate attempt for science to squash the truth by saying that this flood happened by a long geologic process? What would we call that? Crazy, untenable, or inconsistent? It's somewhere between untenable and inconsistent, I would say, and totally wrong, by the way. Totally wrong. So frustrating. All right.
Especially in the limestone caves area of the mid-continent of the United States. But the onslaught continued all the way through the 1930s. And on the left-hand side, Ira Allison, a professor at Oregon State, and he had his own ideas for mapping. He mapped out all of these erratics, these different rocks, granites and argillites and metamorphic rocks, all up and down the Portland area, the Vancouver area, and the Willamette Valley. But he had other ideas as to how they got there. And then this guy on the right-hand side, Richard Foster Flynn, Yale professor. He is the father of American glaciology and glacial geology. And a guy that was really well respected. He actually had been out here. He studied the Touchy beds, which I'll talk about in a second. Yet he hated Bretts, and he said, Bretts, you aren't right at all. And he
hated Bretts.
He would go
We
out
hate
of his
you,
way
Bretts,
to
and
tell
your
Bretts
truth.
how wrong he was.
Get out of here with your truth.
When we rewrote the book, we got all these pictures of these old guys because Marjorie didn't have them in the first book. And when she came in and was reviewing them, she said, this is my favorite picture in the whole book. And I said, it's just an old guy. What do you mean? And she said, well, you have to remember, I'm a Dickens novelist. And in every Dickens novel, there is a sleazy, greasy, bad guy, Uriah Heep type guy. And boy, he sure looks like it. And so he really was the thorn in the side of J. Harlan Bretts. And the onslaught continued until 1940. And this is when J.T. Pardee broke the silence at that time. And he made a presentation here in Seattle. And this was at the American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting that was up there. And he was there at that 1927 talk in Washington, D.C. And he turned to his friend at the side and says, I know where the water came from. Because these guys were saying, you don't have a source of the water and you can't be catastrophic. And then he said, oh, and he had been working for the U.S. Geological Survey for many, many years up in Montana. Who was his boss? All those 5 guys that crucified Bretts.
It's interesting that he keeps saying crucified.
When he retired, he said, I'm going to tell the rest of the story. And he said, I've been working up in the Merkle Pass area in Montana. And I am seeing these huge ripples that go across here that are 2 and 3 miles long and 50 feet high.
All right, I'm going to stop. I was going to try to get to the point where basically Bretts is right. He actually outlived all of his detractors, all those people that were crucifying him. Bretts lived to be 93. Everybody knows his accepted science right now. And he had to break the mold. He had to oppose the system. Can you imagine? I bet you there were threats on his life. That dude was a conspiracy theorist because he didn't believe the official narrative. And he fought for his whole life to change this. And I might show my TikTok video. I will. It wasn't just this one. When Bretts broke the seal, which is exactly why they were trying to oppose him, geologists all over the world started piecing together that there was evidence of this everywhere. Evidence of this was everywhere. I'm actually going to pull that up on my the TikTok video that I made about it. I'm going to repost that here on TikTok. Let me get this pulled up. Atlantis is so important because not
the late 70s that they had lined up. Forget it. I'm not.
Oregon geologic formation was the result of a mega flood. Bretz didn't just prove Hutton wrong. He also opened the eyes of the scientific community to see the geologic evidence all over the world of mega floods.
Now, is this the biggest flood that we have ever found? Up until 2 years ago, we said yes. But the biggest one is in Altai, Russia. In fact, the top 10 are all glacial dams that break and flow out. But then just last year, they found one in Iceland, another ice dam flood that came out, and it was just a little bit bigger than that one. So this is the third largest one that geologists have found.
Can you believe that, you guys? I wish you could have seen that on TikTok. I wrapped it up. I don't know where it is in that video, so I'm not going to find it. But once he opened the world's eyes to floods having caused these canyon formations, they started seeing them everywhere. And now the Missoula flood is only in the top 10 of the biggest canyons formed by mega floods. It's only in the top 10. The Altai, Russia, the one in, I think it was Switzerland, I forget where he said it was, Austria, whatever, Norway, they're everywhere. Bretz and these people knew that when they were stopping him, from getting the truth out, from saying, this is what rocks that look like this are caused from a flood. When they finally stopped him, when he finally broke that seal and they couldn't stop him any longer, geologists all around the world went, holy Moses, the entire landscape of the world is formed by catastrophic floods. Lyell and Hutton were wrong. They're full of shit. Excuse my language. They were lying. They were bluffing. They didn't want God involved. If you research them, they had Puritan upbringings. They hated religion. They hated God. And they said, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if this is true. We are going to teach you what we believe. And can you imagine? Think about 200 years from now. Imagine if 200 years from now, everybody's teaching that we're in a simulation that the Torah is the operating system for, which is the theory that I have. Imagine that 200 years from now, people are teaching the thing that I believe, and that's the year 2230, and they were still teaching that. If I got in a time machine, I'd be like, wow, you guys are still teaching this. That's crazy. I would have never thought that you would teach us 200 years later. They teach us 200 years later. And this is all happening in the last 30 years that it's accepted, and they're finding it everywhere. And it's an exciting time in geology right now to be a geologist, because you can look at the things and go, wow, catastrophism happens. Catastrophes happen. And it explains what we're looking at. So if you remember, when I read that earlier, up until 1840, everybody believed that the Bible was accurate and the landscape of the world that we looked at was formed by the events of the Bible. And then we have this 200-year period, 160-year period where they refused that because of dogma, and now it's turned around. So a couple things. Here's a silver lining. If you want to be a scientist, be Bretz. Okay? Be Bretz. Break them with the truth and fight till the day you die defending the truth. Be Bretz. Amber, hello. Thank you. I just posted those 3 videos on my YouTube. Excuse me. I always think it's a good idea to drink bubbly water when I'm doing this. I should stop doing that. I could burp the alphabet. I've never been able to do that. Those people that can do that. So I posted those 3 videos on YouTube. I'm going to post them on TikTok here as well. I'm making a video on Benjamin Franklin right now for TikTok that I'll release tomorrow. But when I get back more into flood stuff, but it's on YouTube if you guys want to jump. Another reason for you guys to jump over to YouTube is if you go over there, you can watch those 3 videos. And I'm going to cover a little bit more tonight. But okay. Oh, here I am not sharing my screen. So if you're going to do anything, be Bretz. That's my point with that. Fight for the truth. Understand you're going to get ridiculed. You might get censored. You might get taken down. Fight for the truth. Don't let the lying establishment silence you, because what you say pisses them off because you defend God. God is everywhere. The Bible account is everywhere. We are living out the Bible like the never-ending story. And it's just the godless elites that spin a different narrative. So, okay. So now to the next piece, just to see how pervasive this is, you guys. Oh, man. We got good stuff coming up here. TikTok, you got to get to the YouTube. Go to the link in my bio. He thinks the Grand Canyon proves Noah's flood was real. Okay. So remember, up here in Missoula, they've proven that it was a mega flood, right? They say it's an ice age flood. Ice could have been involved, but we believe it's receding flood waters. So if the Missoula flood right up here was caused by receding waters from the flood, then is it possible that the Grand Canyon down here was also formed by this? Have you guys really looked at the Grand Canyon, like images of it? Have you been there? Does anybody here actually believe that that little river caused that? Seriously, this is for both TikTok and YouTube. Thank you guys for being here. Does anybody in this room, the people on TikTok and the people on YouTube, believe that the Colorado River actually carved out the Grand Canyon? Let me pull it up on YouTube. Is this in TikTok, Mom?
Yes.
Can you do it? Is it possible? Carefully. It's right here. You just got to be careful. Sissy's in there.
I'll do it later.
Okay. All right. I'm going to Google and see what happens. Maybe I'll break the system. The Grand Cañone. We'll join you Spanish, Ellis. Los Grande Cañones. All right. This is a good one. I wish you guys could see this. Look at this picture. Look at this picture. And tell me that that is formed by this river. That this tiny river, which by the way, you can see what it's actually carved out. You can see what the river's actually carved out over 6,000 years or 4,500 years. That's what the river's actually carved out. This whole basin was not carved by this river. Not carved by this river. But let's just assume you got crazy and tried to teach that the Grand Canyon was formed by floods. Does this at all seem like what Barrett's was faced with? He thinks the Grand Canyon proves Noah's flood was real. This was published in 2017 and updated in 2020 because I'm sure it aged really well. The picture is a bunch of animals, stupid Photoshop hanging out of a tiny wooden boat. Is total hit piece, right? In order to prove the historical accuracy of the biblical flood story, a geologist is currently suing the National Park Service for the right to remove 60 half-pound rocks from the Grand Canyon National Park. His formal request was denied late last July. Word late isn't there. I just threw it in. His formal request was denied last July, and now Andrew Snelling is being represented by the conservative Christian legal group Alliance Defending Freedom. Senior counsel Gary McCaleb told the New York Times that the proposal was denied not on the quality of the proposal, but on what Snelling might do with the data. You guys want to know why I'm pissed off? This is why I'm pissed off. I'm sorry for being pissed off. I shouldn't be. But this pisses me off. I see it everywhere. Everywhere. I play whack-a-mole with the elite lying Luciferian maniac narrative, official narrative. It's everywhere. It's all the nature of reality. It's the history. It's everything. It doesn't matter if I'm researching the Shroud video, if I'm researching, the Big Bang, if I'm researching simulation. It doesn't matter what I'm researching. Every single thing is an ad hominem attack on if you just don't agree with the official narrative. You're crucified. You're done. Just like they did to Barrett's. Look at this, you guys. I found this tonight doing this research. His formal request was denied, not on the quality of the proposal. So it doesn't matter if it was a good proposal. Hey, we'd like to get some rocks out of there because we're going to like totally prove that the flood caused the Grand Canyon thing. It was not denied because of the quality of the proposal, but on what Snelling might do with the data. Snelling is what is known as a young earth creationist. I didn't read further into this. Someone who, following the biblical book of Genesis and the biblical timeline of events, holds the position that the earth is only a few thousand years old. His motivation is to demonstrate the biblical flood story happened, and happened just as the Bible says it did. His research, if it panned out, would have the additional bonus of grounding the scientific evidence for the flood in the United States. I have to subscribe to get this, and I'm not going to. It's called The Daily Beast, and they suck. It's a hit piece. Okay, so now, I wish you guys, anybody, if you can come over to YouTube, you got to see these shots that I'm showing. This picture of the animals hanging out of the ark really pisses me off. They're so mean to God and us that believe in the Bible. Okay, so wait till you see this. We're not going to let this guy, a shadow. I know you haven't seen this research, bro. I know you haven't, and that's good research. They're not going to let this guy have this rock because he's going to prove, just like Barrett's, that the flood caused the Grand Canyon. He's going to prove it. And they said, no, you will not prove this. We want to believe that a bunch of stupid photoshopped animals were hanging out of a small wooden boat and that your story sucks because we don't want to be held accountable. We don't like your God. We don't like the rules. And we like Lyle and Hutton. And we're just going to do whatever we want to do. We control the system. Get your kids out of school. Get your kids out of school. Teach them at home what you believe. Teach them what you believe. I'm not going to tell you what to teach them, but you better make sure that what you're putting in their precious brains is what you want them to know and believe. You have that right as the parent. As the parent, you have that right. You can teach your children what you want them to believe. And that goes for everybody. Everybody can teach their children. They have that right. That's a God-given right. But don't let them be taught something you don't want them to believe. Okay, so just to be sure, can't believe in the Bible, can't believe in the flood. Brett's disproved their uniformitarianism. This guy isn't going to be given the evidence. There's no way that the flood caused the Grand Canyon. Just to be sure we know, there's no way the flood caused the Grand Canyon. But you guys aren't going to believe what I'm about to show you. There's no way that the flood of Noah caused the formation of the Grand Canyon. But science is willing to teach. Why is this stupid big banner up there? Can I get rid of it? What if I open this up a little bit? All right, I can't see it, so I'm flying blind, you guys. Mega floods on Mars carved giant canyons into the red planet. Mars is currently a barren world of ice and dirt, not a drip of water. But at one time, catastrophic mega floods of water carved massive canyons across the surface of the red planet. Some 3.7 billion years ago, when Mars was warmer and wetter, there were likely hundreds of lakes and rivers on its surface that may have supported favorable conditions for life. These bodies of water are long gone, but they carved permanent features into the Martian landscape, called paleo lakes and paleo channels, that scientists can study for clues about the watery Mars of the past. Now, scientists have discovered that some of these ancient lakes burst through their crater basins, causing outburst floods, also known as mega floods, which carved out wide canyons within a few weeks. The new finding published on Friday confirms that these flood features, called outlet canyons, were formed on very short time scales and were a major geologic force in Mars' first billion years as a planet. There's no water on Mars. There's no water on Mars. There's no water on Mars. The Earth is covered in water. You can't believe that a flood caused the Grand Canyon, but you can believe that floods caused Grand Canyons on Mars. That's just how this works. That's your reality. Welcome to Clown Town. We've all been here for a while now. The guy with trying to sue, he's known as a young Earth creationist. He's known as a young Earth creationist, this guy, and he wants to get rocks, and he's going to use that data to support his worldview. We will not let it happen. But I need you to go ahead and believe that on Mars, where there's no water, mega floods caused all of the canyons. I'm going to read this again. And how in the hell from Earth they figured this out? I don't know. Great telescope with the past option where you can look at Mars and into the past 3.7 billion years ago to see the floods. Or are they pretending that they're getting the rocks? Are they going and getting the rocks and radiocarbon dating them? What in the world are they talking about? Now scientists have discovered that some of these, he discovered nothing. Now scientists are saying that some of these ancient lakes burst through their crater basins, causing outburst floods, also known as mega floods. There is mega flood evidence all around the world. I should have found, there's another video that I found, totally not supporting the biblical flood. It's totally just like a standard geologic video, but mega floods, it's like on PBS. They've caused everything. Every canyon you see is a flood. It was a flood outburst. Even the ones on Mars, apparently. Also known as mega floods, which carved out wide canyons within a few weeks. Can you guys, I just want you to think about this. I want you to imagine, because we were all programmed to think of something totally incorrect, a total lie. Go to the Grand Canyon in your mind, in a car, on the Googles, and look at it. And I want you to imagine the entire world under a deluge. The whole world is covered by a flood, and the waters are receding, and they get stored up in one of those high spots. And then whatever happens, water is tenacious and it wants to get out. And imagine that opening up, and imagine a third of the size of one of the oceans, or however much water this would have been, rushing from the Colorado Rockies, I guess the Utah Rockies, down, actually probably both of them. There's some huge plateaus over there, down through that canyon and ripping it open and just opening it up and ripping out into the Pacific. Some of the estimates about the speed of these waters at the Barrett's flood are like 600 miles an hour or something. The water's going, and it's causing all this cavitation and maybe even sonic booms and just ripping down there. And then I want you to think if that makes more sense than a little river over 68 zillion billion trillion years causing that thing. Like, I'm talking about Occam's razor here, people. I'm talking about the most simple explanation being the correct one. And if it works on Mars, it works in the Grand Canyon. Okay? So what if now somebody in the Grand Canyon, like a tour guide, let's say, oh, that's not the wrong one. Did I bring it? Here we go. We'll get to the next share. JR, I'll try and get better about getting off my shared screen. Ooh, maybe let's try the side. Let's try the side share. See if this works. You guys, it's unbelievable. Let's try the side. Well, you can't see it great, can you? Maybe if I make it smaller. Let's try to make it smaller. Is that looking good? Maybe you'll see it. Now I'm just going to go to the full screen. All right, you guys. Book creates debate over age of Grand Canyon. How old is the Grand Canyon? Most scientists agree with the version that rangers of the Grand Canyon National Park tell visitors that the 10-mile chasm in northern Arizona was carved by the Colorado River 5 to 6 million years ago. Now, however, a book in the park's bookstore tells another story. On sale since last summer, Grand Canyon, A Different View by veteran Colorado River guide Tom Vale. If your name's Tom Vale, you got to be from Colorado. Asserts that the Grand Canyon was formed by the Old Testament flood, the one Noah's Ark survived, and can be no older than a few thousand years. The book, which sells for $16.99, includes essays from creation scientists and theologians. Vale wrote an introduction for years as a Colorado guide. I told people how the Grand Canyon was formed over the evolutionary timescale of millions of years. Then I met the Lord. Now I have a different view of the canyon, which according to the biblical timescale can't possibly be more than a few thousand years old. Reaction to the book has been sharply divided. The American Geological Institute and 7 geoscience organizations sent letters to the park and to agency officials calling for the book to be removed. In part to appease some outraged Grand Canyon employees, the book was removed from the natural sciences section and moved to the inspirational reading section of the park bookstores. Yep. Barrett's is rolling in his grave. It's so frustrating. Okay. Recap. Lyell and Hutton. Lyell was a friend of Darwin's. Hutton started it. Lyell took over for Hutton. Lyell and Darwin were like, yeah, let's just make up this whole story. Everybody's going to believe us. Totally pushed. They pushed uniformitarianism, even though it wasn't scientifically valid. It was just a guy's philosophy. Pushed it for 200 years. Barrett's comes along and goes, hey, this was totally a flood. Fights the whole scientific community. Has to take them all on one by one. Spends his whole life fighting for this. Proves that it was formed by a mega flood. But we're still stuck on, if a man writes a book that says that the Grand Canyon was formed by the biblical event, people sue. They sue. They call. The NAACP got involved. They didn't say it on there, but I know this from my research. The NAACP got involved, I believe. No, it's the other one. That's the wrong one. What's the other one? The really ACLU. Sorry, I got that wrong. Gotta get my acronyms right. Definitely wasn't the NAACP. It was the ACLU. They got involved. They sued. They said, take that book out of science and put it in religion. Unbelievable. Oh, and by the way, you can totally believe that mega floods caused canyons on Mars, just not the Grand Canyon. Can't believe that. Can't do it. I'm going to take a 2-minute break. I'm going to answer some chats, some text chats, some TikTok chats. I hear there's a troll over here. If you guys have any questions, I'll try and get in on this. What did I say? The Googles. Yeah, the Googles. Okay, so TikTok, what do we got here? What do you say about? The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. You're just not grasping how many times we've gone through Ice Age. Hello, American Ninja. I apologize for calling you a troll. I didn't know. I heard the word troll. I read the word troll. I don't think you're a troll. Sounds to me like you have a worldview. I have a worldview, and that's great. We can agree, right? Or sorry, we can disagree. That's cool. I apologize for being more inflammatory than I probably needed to be. This just upsets me. I've been researching this for a long time, and it upsets me. But massive flooding throughout the history of the Earth is not uncommon. Yeah. Okay. If when I get done with this, American Ninja, if you want to discuss for a little bit, I'd love to go and just, compare notes. But I want to finish this train of thought. So the flood brings us to fossils. Okay. And this will be all we're going to cover tonight is fossils. We're not going to get into evolution until tomorrow, and we'll get into that madness tomorrow. But we've all found fossils. We've all seen fossils. Does anybody really, I mean, I'm sure some people do, but do you guys have a pretty good grasp for how a fossil is formed? What has to happen? Like the order of events? That's a lot to text, I know. Yeah, and that's fine, American Ninja. I apologize. I read troll. I saw something. I overreacted. So, peace. I'd like to discuss this with you. I think it's great to have a discussion. I love these discussions. So, I haven't had one in a while. So, I hope you'll stick around. A fossil is a piece of an animal or a human or sea animal, whatever, and some living organism that if the actual organic material is left to the elements, it's going to decompose. Scavengers are going to get it. You know, if you here in Maine, we have this whole thing that like if one of your animals dies, like a chicken or whatever, any animal you have, you just got to make sure you throw it far enough into your yard that you don't get the coyotes up there, but it'll be gone the next day. It's crazy. There's just like all these like nanobots that just like slide in and take them out, like coyotes, ravens, whatever. I mean, gone the next day. You don't see like a little bit of it, like it's gone. It just goes away, whatever happens. And so if that happens, you would have a disarticulated, you'd have skull and going this way and bones and stuff going this way. In order to have a preserved animal or dinosaur or a human or something like that preserved in the fossil form, especially a complete one, they have to get rapidly covered up and protected from scavengers, the environment, entropy, decomposition. That's what's going to happen, right? That's what's going to happen. So the prevailing answer for how fossils are formed is that they're basically rapidly covered in sediment, mud. Because if something were to die and get covered in mud, then it would be protected, it would be encased, and then it could go through the fossilization process, right? So uniformitarianists know this, and so they have to have like workarounds. Creationists or intelligent design advocates or flood advocates see the Great Flood of Noah as the very easy silver bullet answer for all of these fossil specimens that we found. In particular, the ones of like whales found on top of, Mount Everest and in the middle of deserts and such like that. And of course, the uniformitarianists are going to say, well, yeah, we know there was water at times all around, blah, 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 blah. But look, you're going to have to believe something about fossilization. You're going to have to believe something about how a fossil is formed. And the flood is a very good explanation for what we know as the fossil record. And I want to show you an article that I found discussing this. I actually was researching polystrate fossils. Are you guys familiar with polystrate fossils? Polystrate, here, I'll show it to you this way. Polystrate fossils. A polystrate fossil is a fossil of a single organism, such as a tree trunk that extends through more than one geological stratum. So you have all of these. Okay, so you have all of these. I'll get you an image of it. Make sure this is being shared correctly. It is. Okay. So you have all of these black eyes on the record of the uniformitarianists. This is what they look like. These are polystrate fossils. You guys can't see it on TikTok. I apologize. If you come over to YouTube, you can see it. Here is what a polystrate fossil. There's a drawing of one. So you've got these different strata layers, right? Each one of these are, you've got the Precambrian and the Cambrian, and you've got the, I forget what they all are, whatever, all the different layers. It's been a while since I've researched this, but each one of these layers is supposed to be millions of years, hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of years. And you've got these fossils that run through 100 millions of years of sedimentation of layers. So you can see this here. It's a tree sticking through. I mean, if you were to do the timing here or look at it, this would be like 380 million years ago and 240 million years ago and 120 million years ago. So like you're going to basically say that a tree stood upright and was upright for however many 100 million years. Doesn't make any sense, right? These are polystrate fossils. I wasn't going to fully get into them because it's very controversial. It's one of those things that incites a reaction on people. Geologists hate it and they get all mad, and Christians are excited about it. But anyway, so I was researching Paul today and I came across this article. Give me an idea what we're up against here. This is the NCSE, National Center for Science Education. I mean, that sounds pretty valid. I'm not familiar with the outfit, but this is common creationist attacks on geology. Am I a creationist? I think I'm a creationist. Common creationist attacks on geology. In the last issue of my article, The Fatal Flaws of Flood Geology, attacked the Flood Geology Model Institute of Creation Research Center by citing a number of geologic formations, blah, blah, blah. Fossilization. Question. I'm pretty sure this guy's writing his questions and answering them, which is really tacky, but question. Can geologists actually explain fossilization? Creationists argue that evolution requires sediments to accumulate slowly and tranquilly over millions of years, yet that animals and plants always rot away or get eaten by scavengers unless they become buried quickly after death. This means if the Earth's past were as tranquil as evolutionary geologists say, there would be no fossils. All the potential fossils would have rotted away or been eaten long before enough sediments could accumulate to bury them. Creationists, therefore, argue that only the flood of Noah could have buried all the fossils fast enough to ensure their preservation. How do you answer that? Geologists never said that all geologic processes were tranquil. Creationists are setting up a straw man and presenting a false dilemma. Their straw man is the imaginary geologist who supposedly says all geological processes are tranquil. Their false dilemma is their attempt to force us to choose between this straw man and their biblical flood, between total tranquility and a monster catastrophe. You guys were here earlier when I was talking about this. I'm going to do this in a share a window way. We're going to go back to what they actually teach. I guess I can't do it that way. Uniformitarianism. The combined efforts of Lyell and Hutton became the foundation of modern geology. You remember the guy that I had on there talking about why they denied Barrett's, because they said you cannot blaspheme the great gods of geology and uniformitarianism. You can't do it, right? So this guy's, just to give you an idea for this guy's defense, geologists never said that all geologic processes were tranquil. Yes, they did. Yes, as a matter of fact, your entire I'm going to call it an industry. Your entire industry is built on the philosophy that the key is the present is the key to the past. Your entire dogma and rote is this idea that you cannot use catastrophism. Now, I understand that because of Barrett's spearheading this, he changed the dynamic, and now we're starting to they're conceding catastrophism. But for him to say geologists never said that all geologic processes were tranquil is a total lie. And he goes, creationists are setting up a straw man and presenting a false dilemma. Their straw man is the imaginary geologist who supposedly says all geologic processes are tranquil. You mean the 5 guys that were attacking Barrett's and crucifying him for talking about the flood? Their false dilemma is the attempt to force us to choose between this straw man and their biblical flood, between total tranquility and a monster catastrophe. Actually, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I mean, that's the first thing he said. That's worth a darn. But geology operates on the assumption that the laws of physics and chemistry remain unchanged since the formation of the Earth. I think that we would agree with that. Geology tries as much as possible to explain the geologic past in terms of processes that can be seen happening on the Earth today. Cool. So your entire system is bankrupt and not intellectually honest. What kind of hubris would you have to say, well, It's happening today. It means that's the only thing that's ever happened. That's it. It's happening today. Nothing else ever happened. This is what they do. The basic approach is called uniformitarianism. The doctrine of the present is key to the past. Uniformitarianism does not teach, however, that geologic processes are tranquil. It does not mean the geologic process, blah, 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 blah. Can you elaborate on this process? Oh, here we go. What it does mean is that the processes observable today can explain, either in the laboratory or on the field, can explain the vast majority of the rocks we find in the earth. Can you elaborate on these processes? And I'm pretty sure he writes this to himself. Can you elaborate on these processes? Surely! Exclamation point. River floods, volcanic eruptions, turbidity flows, tidal waves, storm waves, and other violent processes observable today are quite capable of bearing organisms and preserving traces of them. And then river floods bury plants and animals, both living and dead, in river floodplains and deltas. So here's the answer. Here's the answer, okay? The answer is that, yes, the only way that fossils will form is if water sedimentation near flooding, if flooding covers up animals or organic material. That's the only way that fossilization is going to happen. But the good news is rivers flood sometimes. So there you go. There's your answer. Rivers flood sometimes. So the whales on Mount Everest and the seashells and the proto whales in the Sahara Desert are from flooding rivers. So we got that answered right. Super easy. Anyways, it's this whole thing. It's just this constant battle between the truth and interpreting the data, even with any kind of intellectual honesty, and just being fed a line because of an agenda. And that's my whole point. This is when you refuse the idea of a creator, a source that did this, when you refuse the Bible as a historical narrative, even though it's the top 3 oldest books in mankind and has been proven accurate over and over and over, when you refuse a creator and the history of the creator and the history of mankind, you have to just lie out your teeth and just come up with whatever ridiculous narrative you can to defend the thing you actually believe. And none of this is about intellectual honesty or even following Occam's razor. It's just about defending your godless beliefs. So whatever your intentions are, religious trauma, you don't want to be held accountable, you don't want to be told you're sinning, whatever. You now have a narrative to believe, and it's this Lyell, Hutton, Darwin, Tyson, Nye, Dawkins, deGrasse Tyson nonsense. I mean, we're 6 hours into this study now, and dozens of lies, ridiculous lies, absolute insanity. And Bill Nye starts it off by saying, if you don't believe their version, you're crazy, your ideas are untenable, and they're inconsistent. Well, we haven't even started, you guys, we haven't even started looking at the problems with evolution. I plan to do that tomorrow. But without even getting into evolution, we've spent 6 hours. And you want to talk about crazy, untenable, and inconsistent? That's what they believe, and that's what they're teaching. A crazy, untenable, and inconsistent worldview. Biased, truthless garbage. And we were all subjected to it. Which sucks. I want to end on this. This is a precursor going into tomorrow's show about evolution, but this is a really, oh wait, I'm sitting here not showing my face. This is a really good way to wrap this up. I'm going to make one more point. Like, again, we've seen it with the Oort cloud and abiogenesis and all of this nightmare information. But this was actually the first TikTok video I tried making. I still had it queued up when my account got shut down. I always wanted to release it and I hadn't because I can't cover it in a minute. But this is what we're going to end this on today. TikTok, if you can come watch this video, you should. Soft tissue found inside of a dinosaur bone. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but When Mary Schweitzer found it, it was the first anybody had ever seen it. They found dozens and dozens and dozens. It's everywhere now. They just didn't know to look for it, or it had been obfuscated. There's soft tissue in dinosaur bones, and soft tissue would be totally gone inside of 10,000 years, 50,000 years max. Some carbon dates have said that it's 30,000 years old. And this is my parting gift to you guys. Scientism explaining soft tissue found in dinosaur bones.
Stated Clearly presents the scientific saga of Dr. Mary Schweitzer and her discovery of soft tissue inside a dinosaur bone. In 2003, a team of paleontologists finished excavating an incomplete yet extremely well-preserved T-Rex skeleton. During transport, the animal's femur, its thigh bone, had to be broken in two. While the bone was eventually put back together, pieces that had fallen out were kept separate and then sent to Dr. Mary Schweitzer for dissection and analysis. After applying a mild acid to the fragments to remove hard minerals, a diverse collection of soft material could be seen under the microscope. It included what looked like cells and tiny blood vessels. They were very degraded, but similar to those commonly found inside fresh bone. Chemical analysis further revealed what looked like animal proteins. Dr. Schweitzer was shocked. According to our understanding at the time, unless treated with chemicals, the way that leather is, for example, and then further sealed for preservation, soft tissue was predicted to completely deteriorate, even under the best of circumstances, in less than 1 million years. This T-Rex leg bone, however, was thought to be millions of years old. What could this discovery of soft tissue mean? To Dr. Schweitzer and to many other researchers, there were three main possibilities. Number one, the fossil might be far younger than previously thought, maybe even less than 1 million years old. Number two, the fossil could have been recently contaminated by microbes that produced the soft structures after the bone had fossilized, a substance known as biofilm. Option number three, there might be a previously unknown natural mechanism capable of preserving soft tissue far longer than 1 million years. Having studied paleontology throughout her career, Dr. Schweitzer immediately knew that option number one was least likely. The fossil had been found in a set of rock layers known as the Cretaceous, ancient sediments laid down between 145 to 66 million years ago. Our understanding of the age of these rocks is founded on thousands of data points telling us how rock layers form, on the careful study of the rise and fall of various ecosystems and animal groups in the fossil record, and on the clear results of hundreds of experiments on radiometric dating. Many overlapping radiometric dating methods have been used to confirm the age range of Cretaceous rocks, and the results have been independently checked by laboratories around the globe. To successfully argue that her single discovery means that the fossil is actually young, she would have to ignore everyone else's careful observations. Given the extreme imbalance of evidence, it seemed to her and to other well-informed thinkers that option number one was not plausible.
I missed the one part earlier. It seemed to her and other well-informed thinkers that option one is not plausible. Sure, tissue can't live for 300 million years, or whatever the official time frame is of when they think dinosaurs ran around. We know that. We know that tissue can't last 300 million years. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. But that doesn't matter. We don't care about the truth, and we don't care about what is the most whatever you think is the most obvious answer doesn't matter. What matters is what we believe. So this whole dinosaur tissue thing is really throwing a wrench in our situation. We don't appreciate it. We hate it when the truth gets in the way of science. It sucks. It's like the axis of evil, which, I didn't cover that yesterday. I need to cover that. The axis of evil. Yeah, science really, they hate it when the truth gets in the way of their agenda. Let's continue on this.
Early on, her colleagues argued that option number two was most likely. As is the custom in science, Papers were published critiquing Dr. Schweitzer's work. Many of them suggested that what she had found was actually biofilm. After closer examination, several years of debate, and many papers published back and forth, however, the scientific community is now largely convinced. The soft tissue that Dr. Schweitzer found is authentic.
Oh, the soft tissue is
It
authentic.
did come from the original
It did
T-Rex.
come from the original T-Rex.
This left informed thinkers to suspect that option number 3 was most likely.
This left informed thinkers. I really love how they keep putting this in there. I certainly want to be an informed thinker. I mean, I consider myself a thinker. What was the first term they used? Well-informed. Yeah, I want to be an informed thinker. Informed, meaning they told you. It also means information. Do you guys know that information is in formation? Inform, you're inform. You're being informed. You are being told to get in line. This left inform with the narrative thinkers to suspect that option 3 was most likely. But how? Listen to their answer.
But how? What natural process,
What natural
or
process
collection of natural processes could allow soft tissue to remain intact for over 66 million years?
66 million years. 66 million years.
Nobody had
At
an
the
answer,
tissue.
but Dr. Schweitzer was determined to figure it out.
Nobody had an answer. I have an answer. Nobody had an answer. You were wrong about your time. I have an answer. I'm a pretty well-informed thinker. And my answer is that you were wrong about the time frame. That's my answer. You were wrong. Suck it up. Deal with it. What in the hell does she... Listen to what she just said.
Could allow soft tissue
What could
to remain
possibly allow
intact
soft
for
tissue
over
to remain intact for 66 million years?
Nobody had an answer.
Nobody had an
but
answer.
Dr. Schweitzer was determined to figure it out.
Nobody had an answer, but Schweitzer was figured to... Let me tell you what Schweitzer was determined to do. Schweitzer was determined to come up with a justification for the finding that she had so she could convincingly fit it into her narrative, which is what this all is. The comets, the Oort cloud, the Grand Canyon, abiogenesis, panspermia. This is all like, this has been 6 hours now that we've been researching this, and I've got another 2 to 4. This could be a 10-hour lecture that we could put out. And when you look at the aggregate of lies that are being thought up and promoted as fact to dispel the Bible, like how can you not see that this is a multifaceted, coordinated event against God of the Bible? This is what this is. This is multiple disciplines throughout centuries of propaganda, banging the same drum of the same message that you cannot trust the Bible. How can we explain this reality? How can we explain this reality with the Bible being totally wrong? Thanks, Cody, for saying that. Dude, it's hours. Like, people, dude, I stopped believing in God. I had trauma, legitimate tragedy in my life. Both of my parents, like, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I was pissed and done. If you want to deny God, that's fine. That's fine. But you do not have the science to back up your belief. You don't have the science to back this up. There's not a single shred of science that backs up the idea that we aren't in a created order. Nothing. Cool, you hate the Bible. You hate being told what to do. You hate the sky man. You hate people, God managing your genitals or whatever. You hate that. I get it. But there isn't a single shred of evidence in support of this not being a designed order. Hear me now. Not a single shred of evidence in support of your belief system. If you want to believe it, great. And here's all I ask. We're all human. I can respect what you believe. You can respect what I can believe, and we can move on with our days. Good day to you, sir. Good day to you. You believe your thing, I believe my thing. Hey, we have free will. The Creator gave us free will. And you know what I'm not going to do is make my beliefs affect you somehow. I'm not going to go tell you what to do with your land or what to shoot in your body or whatever. Let me take care of my family and take care of my land and serve my God, which is what this country was built on. It's infuriating. Nobody had an answer, Mary. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that there was soft tissue in your dinosaur bone and you're totally, everything you were taught is a lie and you're pissed off about it and you've got to reconcile it. I'm sorry, Mary. I'm really sorry for your loss. God is real. Deal with it. They come up with a theory.
Out.
I forget what it is.
As
Like
luck would have
dinosaur iron cancer or something. Let me see what they
it,
say.
when first uncovering her discovery, she randomly attended a lecture on brain disease which focused on the destructive power of free iron particles on living tissue.
Free iron particles.
Iron is
on living
extremely
tissue.
common in our blood.
Iron is common in our
Normally,
blood.
however, it's trapped safely inside
Normally it's trapped
hemoglobin,
inside
a
safely
blood
in
protein that uses iron to
hemoglobin.
capture oxygen in the lungs and deliver it throughout the body. While iron is safe and highly useful inside hemoglobin, loose iron particles can wreak havoc on our cells. In a process called cross-linking, iron can trigger a series of chemical reactions, eventually causing proteins and other cellular structures to unravel and fuse together in a tangled, useless mess. In living animals, cross-linking is bad. In dead tissue, however, Dr. Schweitzer knew that cross-linking leads to preservation. Chemicals that we use to turn delicate animal skins into tough, durable leather do so by cross-linking proteins. Formaldehyde, the chemical used to preserve soft tissue in museum specimens, also uses cross-linking to do its work. When Dr. Schweitzer examined the soft tissue from her dinosaur fossil, she found that it was saturated in iron crystals. When the T-Rex had died, blood must have begun to decompose, releasing iron from hemoglobin. As iron spread through tissue and bone, it initiated cross-linking. The soft tissues most affected would have been preserved like leather for a long period of time. Tissues that were both cross-linked and sealed safely inside hard bone were double protected, allowing them to survive for millions of years until present day. Based on the evidence, her explanation seemed reasonable, but being a trained scientist, Dr.
Whatever, I can't listen to any more of it. Just, yeah, cross-linking iron blood disaster. That's it. We figured it out. Figured it out. You guys, everybody rest easy. The flood didn't happen. It didn't cause the Grand Canyon. It didn't cause the fossil record. It didn't cause the whales. It didn't cause, the whales on Everest. It didn't cause any of these things. All of the flood legends of all of the people all around the world constantly talking about the flood and every, nation having a story about it and whatever. We're all good. Everybody go back to sleep. And I'm done talking about it tonight. So double protected, Sassy says. Yeah, double protected. Double plus protected. 1984. Send a friend request. I'm super new to Discord. Cool. Yeah, anybody who this is what we're trying to do. It's controversial what I do, and the last account I had was stripped from us, and that's a potentiality down the road. So we're working on a way to be found outside of just TikTok. So we're growing the YouTube channel. Thank you guys. 22 people over there right now. That's awesome. Thank you guys. God bless you. I really appreciate your time. When there was only a few of us here at the beginning, I was really sad that you weren't here. I appreciate you very much. The TikTok group, thank you for being over here as well. We have a Discord. The Discord link is in my bio. The YouTube link is in the bio. We're gonna keep doing this as long as we're allowed. So, yeah, that's how you find us. A lot of people. Somebody at drums, I saw him get on here. Thank you for jumping on. He's like, bro, I haven't seen you. Yeah, like when they get rid of you, you're gone. It's an EMP. So we're trying to be sustainable outside of this platform because of how temporal it looks like it is if you talk about God and conspiracy. So thank you guys for being here. I'll answer a couple quick questions on YouTube, figure 2 more minutes on YouTube, and then I'm going to call that. And then you guys, I'm going to jump over to TikTok, and I'm going to have this discussion with these couple people that are in here. Hopefully they're still in here. Hopefully we can have a good discussion about it. So if you guys want to jump over there, that'd be cool too. The Constructor, Double A, love you, man. Good to see you. Johnny, good to see you guys. Love you. Thank you for being here. Heard about this on his Genesis history. Yeah. If you listen to Kurt Wise and all those different people, I mean, it's every bit as believable. Look, the Bible is every bit as believable. It's just all there is to it. And we all have to choose to believe something. And my frustration is that if it was brought that way, hey, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. Choose to believe. I wouldn't have an issue, but it wasn't brought up that way. It was, we believe what we are going to tell you to believe, and you have to believe it. And if you don't, you're crazy, and you are, you're not going to be a good citizen, and whatever other things Bill Nye says. And they all say it. A very scary time in society is when we cross the Rubicon where everybody trusts the government, and they think that intelligence is conformity. When your civilization, when your group of people, your citizenry believes that conformity equals intelligence, you start approving things like censorship and government overreach. This is how they go down, unfortunately. And the founding fathers knew this. As critical as I am of them and their Freemasonic and deist teachings and beliefs, I guess not even teachings, more so beliefs. They knew that. They knew that freedom was precious and hard to keep in business. So the Constructor's great. When a piece of evidence or discovery doesn't fit the narrative, it must be disputed and discredited or buried. Yep. Lou, don't get... Yeah, sorry, Chloe. I'll try not to. Johnny, they were so sure this was one T-Rex was a fluke that they repeated the test on 13 more fossils with the same results. That's right, Shadow. Once they... Just like with when Brett's broke the mold and they saw everywhere that there were floods that had caused all those canyons, once that happened... they saw it absolutely everywhere. And once Schweitzer found this, they find it in every dinosaur bone now. It's every single one. Almost. I mean, not every one, but that soft tissue's in there. And they just don't talk about it. What an exciting thing to talk about. Hey, like, how cool is that? What if dinosaurs were here 30,000 years ago? That would be cool, right? Nope, not cool. Evolution. You can't attack the sacred cow. And if that happened 30,000 years ago, then Darwin's in deep dinosaur doo-doo. It's because that's how Satan works. Submit entirely or you're the enemy. Up. This video left out that little detail. I fully believe the Bible is historical text, regardless if you believe in God or not. 100%. Blue Whiplash. Thank you for saying that. I totally agree. Night Mrs. Lulu. Oh, that's good. All right, guys. I'm gonna run this. I'm talking with the little Luke. JR, you gotta tell me. You gotta tell me. You can't be talking with little Luke out there. We don't want that. We don't want that. All right, YouTube family, love you guys. If you want to jump over to TikTok, it's going to be the after party over there. So, love you guys. In transmission.
Every time I think of you, I feel shot right through with a bolt of blue. It's no problem of mine, it's a problem I find. Living a life that I can't leave behind. There's no sense in telling me the wisdom of a fool won't set you free. That's the way that it goes, it's what nobody knows. While every day my confusion grows. seen. I admit to myself, if I hurt someone else, I'll never see just what we're meant